Oh.
So I'm 21. I'm a new mama. 21 is personally think the weirdest age to become a mom. And today I'm going to be sharing my story about my attempted natural birth. I wanted to and tried to and took all the necessary minimal steps to do a natural birth, and it went wrong. So unpredictable, I know, right? Because I just planned everything so well in my life. The magic of life, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started. So the night before I went into labor, I was up all night cleaning, just making everything ready, nesting, and I went to bed around 1 or 2 in the morning. So of course I woke up with contractions at 5 in the morning. I don't know why I thought this beforehand. She's waking up. I don't know why I thought this beforehand, but I always assumed that contractions would start out kind of like chill, just every 30 minutes, every once in a while, just a little. I kind of expected them to be like Braxton Hicks contractions at first, because Braxton Hicks contractions for me had not been painful. They'd been really tolerable and manageable, even though they'd been strong. No, that was not the case. I woke up and these contractions were strong right away, and immediately, like from the first contraction that woke me up, they were 7 minutes apart. I'm a first-time mom. I've never been through this before, so the first thing I did when I was getting these contractions after maybe like an hour was call my midwife. I got into the natural birthing process late in the game. I was already, I want to say, 28 weeks pregnant when I switched to a birthing center. Granted, overall, I think I am grateful that everything with my birth happened the way that it did, because I just feel like it was such a learning experience. I'm glad that I switched to the natural birth center, because if I hadn't, I know I would have wondered about it. I just did not prepare. I was not able to prepare well enough, because I think the circumstances of me getting pregnant unexpectedly, the circumstances of having to make all these big decisions on top of working full-time and being in school full-time, it was a lot, and so that's part of the reason that I switched so late, but I did. I never really got a chance to get to know one midwife really well. I was kind of thrown between midwives, because you're supposed to meet every single midwife, kind of get a feel for how their style is, and then on top of that, I ended up being narrowed down to choosing between 2 different midwives, because I had low iron in my blood. And so because of that, some of the midwives weren't willing to take my birth just because it was a little bit riskier. I was technically anemic. So I called my midwife and I let her know, the labor thing, it's happening. Obviously, this is not her first rodeo, so she was super chill about it. She was like, okay, just keep track of the contractions and how far they were apart, because I let her know they're about 7 minutes apart and lasting for about a minute. And when they started to get closer together, to call her again. I, from the get-go, was asking about going in to be checked, because I just felt like, I'm in labor and I want to know what the hell's going on down there. I want to know when I can get in that birthing room. Probably not the mindset that you want to go into birth with, but like I said, I was just a little taken aback, a little naive about how much this was gonna hurt right off the bat. And granted, there are people who tell me stories like, I had a really easy labor, my labor was over in 5 hours, the pain wasn't as bad as I expected. I guess my expectations were just too positive. So I kind of asked if I could go in to get checked, and she kind of gave me like the same kind of answer, like, just, you don't need to go in to get checked yet, just wait till the contractions get a little closer together and then you'll come in. Now, I can only speak for the birth experience I had at the birth center that I went to. I don't know if all centers are like this. I personally just feel like if you're in labor, you should be able to go get checked. I don't understand why, if she saw that I kind of wanted to get checked, why she wouldn't be willing to check me. Granted, it was early in the morning, but still, like, especially if you're experiencing it for the first time, you don't have anything to base it off of. Of course you want to be checked, just to make sure that everything's going okay, see how far dilated you are. I just feel like once labor starts, you want to get checked out and you want to know what's going on. My first mistake during my birth was being too passive. Now, generally speaking, I'm not a very passive person, but it's like I said, I didn't know this person particularly well, and I feel like the less I know you, the more passive I am, especially in situations that have to do with me and my health, which is bad, right? Like every doctor I go to, I'm just like, oh yeah, like that's fine. I'm sure my pain means nothing. And if you go to doctors in America, you know, they just run with that. They're like, oh, things seem normal. Okay, cool. So then you just like live with underlying medical conditions that are never diagnosed. But that's another story. I was just like, okay, cool. Let's wait it out. She suggested trying to eat or get some rest. So I was not about to eat at that point, but I tried to lay back down. And like I said, my contractions were close enough together that the concept of getting more sleep was just not realistic. A few hours passed, and finally I was just like, you know what, let's just start driving to the birth center, because I'm not about to deal with this. Like, I'm done. Even if she's not there yet, even if I'm not gonna get checked yet, let's just get close. So like, either I could let her know that I'm there, or at this point it was already like 7 or 8 in the morning, so I thought, you know, there'll be other midwives there, somebody else could check me, we'll figure something out. So I got there maybe 45 minutes before the birth center opened, and I went ahead and gave her a call to just let her know, you know, whenever you want to pull up, I'm here, hi. And honestly, that's all it was. Like, I was not pressed, I was not upset. Yes, I was in pain, but you know, starting to get a little more used to it. As I'm calling her, I started to get a contraction, and I had to use the bathroom, so I was just like, you know what, too much. I handed the phone to my partner, trying to figure out what to call him, because we're actually not together now, so he's still a really active co-parent, but yeah, my child's father, my baby daddy, if you will, he kind of took over, and I just was like, I gotta go, just, you know, let her know we're here. So I come out of the bathroom, my partner lets me know, yeah, so she said that if she's coming, there's really no point in her checking me unless I'm already 4.5 centimeters dilated. Anything lower than that, she's just gonna send us home anyways, and she told us to go take a walk on the beach. She said what? Excuse me? I'm just sitting here, like, mind you, the birth center wasn't even open yet, right? So I had to use the bathroom, so we were at the Subway next door. And this poor Subway worker is just watching this random ass 12-year-old looking ass girl, woman, whatever, go into labor. I'm like leaning on the counter, and I was like, she said to take a walk on the beach? The beach? This Subway worker was just there, like, just trying to look busy. I asked him, is she coming at all? So this is where all the confusion starts, right? My child's father says no. She said she's not coming at all right now, which kind of upset me, because it's like, at this point we're here and I want to get checked. So what's going on? Because up until this point, like I said, I'd been super calm. I didn't expect her to already be there. Obviously, we hadn't told her. We were just kind of driving and getting out of the house. I decided to call her back because I thought, she's not coming. Like, let me just let her know that she should start heading this way whenever she can, because a bit want to get checked. Like, what the hell's going on down there? What's happening? What is the truth? And this woman was big mad. Honestly, that was such a shitty moment. Like, such a shitty moment, because it's like, you know what? You're my healthcare professional. Like, I should be able to call you. I'm a first-time mom. I'm in labor. There was a misunderstanding and miscommunication. And even though I was kind of irritated at this point, when I spoke to her on the phone, I still was immediately, like, starting just off the phone call, I was super calm. I was just like, hey, I just wanted to know if you're coming. I think that's all I said. And right away, she was like, listen, Catherine, like, I'm already coming. I just got out of the shower. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm on my way. And then, okay, this is the part that just got to me. She started lecturing me. She was like, you know, it's 511. That's when you're supposed to come in. You were not at 511 yet. You should have learned this in the classes. And just kept, she just hit the gas and just kept accelerating. She just kept on going. I'm just sitting here on the phone, like, in between contractions, like. Now listen, one thing I will say, I have an art for pissing people off. Like, I have a talent for it. I completely recognize this. But there are certain situations in my life where I look at them, like, there's definitely situations where I look back and I'm like, I was wrong. This is one of those situations where, like, I'm sorry, I was not wrong. Like, I was not doing anything wrong. There was just a misunderstanding. So the fact that she came off immediately, like with that tone, while I'm in not active labor technically, but like labor that's feeling pretty damn active, like that shit sucked. Basically, it just came to a point where I cut her off, and I was just like, okay, I get it. I get that you're upset, but like I don't feel like I'm doing anything to deserve this response. Nate told me that you weren't coming. That's what I understood. So I called back to see if you were coming. That's all this was. And I don't feel like I deserve to be spoken to this way. You told me to take a walk on the beach. Like, I'm in pain. I'm in pain right now. I just want to get checked and see what's going on. So she was like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm on my way. All right, cool. So now I'm in labor, right? I'm trying to like get hyped up for this natural birth experience. And now I got beef with my midwife. Like, I literally have beef with the person who is supposed to deliver my child, who's supposed to be like between my legs delivering my baby. Like, things were not going to plan at all. So this woman shows up and she's just irritated. Like, she walks in the room and already right away she just seems annoyed. I don't even say a word and she's already like, good morning, and just has like a stank ass attitude. I was like, hi. A little bit of backstory. I had told her that my contractions were coming less than 10 minutes apart, which was fairly accurate to my whole experience thus far. Like I said, she'd already kind of come into the room irritated. I get on the table to be examined, and she comes up next to me and says, basically, I'm gonna wait until you get a contraction because you said you were getting them less than 10 minutes apart, and I don't want to examine you when a contraction is starting. And she just looks at me, just stares at me. I was looking back like. So then, like I said, the contractions had been less than 10 minutes apart. I had been timing them. It was coming up on the 10 minutes and nothing was happening. And me and this lady are just looking at each other like. Finally, she goes, that's funny. I just thought you were gonna get a contraction. She said it real shady. So I was just like, yeah, like me too. I thought so too, but I'm not gonna sit here and like fake a motherfucking contraction for you. Like, I don't know what you want from me. So finally, right before she's gonna check me, I do get a contraction in under 10 minutes, I should say. So she checks me, and lo and behold, drum roll please, I was 3 centimeters dilated with my dramatic ass. So my heart just fell to the floor when this woman told me that I was 3 centimeters dilated, and that's for several reasons. First of all, that means that I'm only 3 centimeters, like I'm in this much pain, and I'm not even halfway dilated. Like, excuse me? So motherfucking disrespectful. My second issue was, as I think I mentioned before, you can't go into the birthing room, technically speaking, by the policy until you're 4.5 centimeters dilated. So guess what? We had just driven 30 minutes there, and she just wanted us to go back home so I could relax. Like, I don't even, listen, okay? Before I had a baby, I was really on board with the whole like natural birthing movement. I was like, this is amazing. And women are amazing. We are amazing. I mean, you're amazing no matter how you give birth, period. But I was just so on board. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary, God, what is it called? The Business of Being Born, I believe. And I watched that while I was pregnant. And it talks a lot about the issues that do occur in hospitals. And that's 100% valid. However, I just think it was so funny the way that the women described birth and the way that I saw it before giving birth versus after. There's this one part of the movie where the woman's like, you know, I just feel like this pain was being numbed, and like this pain didn't need to be numbed. Like, this pain demanded to be felt. And at the time when I was watching it, I was like, man, that's so deep. Like, demanded to be felt. Like, oh, amen. And then like comes the time where I'm actually giving birth, especially as it progressed, and I was just like, Can a motherfucker numb this shit? Can somebody numb this shit? Cause I'm not fucking about this. I want it to stop. I want it to stop. I feel like it should be noted, I think the woman who said that, it was her second birth, like it wasn't her first birth, and supposedly the second births are easier, but I'm here to tell you, I never want to find out. So this midwife just wanted us to go home. I was depressed, low-key. I really didn't want to go home. I even felt a little more comfortable being in the birth center just because you're just like, you know that the birth room's right there, you're surrounded by other people, and somehow that made the pain like less noticeable, like there was just more to focus on, I guess. And then, you know, whenever I would go home, I live, you know, alone. My daughter's father is here a lot, and obviously he was there with me at the time, but the thing about him is he falls asleep. I don't know if he has a sleep disorder, I don't know if it's just him, but when he falls asleep like a log, and there is no changing that. I knew as soon as we got home, as soon as the labor had started to progress for a certain amount of time, he was gonna fall asleep, and he hadn't gotten a lot of sleep that night. And then it would literally just be me and my pain alone. So I wasn't really about it, but it's like I said, I knew what I wanted and I needed to be more assertive about it. And to be completely honest, as much as I'm a very opinionated person and a loud person and I'm all about advocating for yourself, I think at times when it comes to advocating for myself, I just fall short, especially in those essential moments. And that does cause miscommunications and problems with people. And that's something I have to work on. And it was one of those things where, again, at this point, after like the whole misunderstanding had happened and I'm only 3 centimeters dilated and I feel embarrassed and I feel frustrated, and I feel confused, I just felt like, you know, I really don't want to go home. I don't think it's the right place for me to be right now. I don't have the support that I need there, but shit, I guess we're going home. We drive all the way back, and her suggestion had been to run a bath. So we run a bath, and I'm sitting in this water, right? And I had planned to have a water birth. And I just remember the contractions started getting a little bit even closer together now, right? So they're like 6 minutes apart now. For a little bit, they were even closer, I think 5 or 4 minutes. And I remember just sitting there and thinking, this water is not doing shit. Like, this water, I don't know what I thought. I don't know if I thought like a warm tub would just melt away the pain of labor. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I wasn't thinking because I was, like I said, I was always working. I didn't have time to think that much about it, but this water is not doing shit. I mean, that's the moral of the story. Well, like, what's water right now? What is any of this? Like, the pain was everything. At this point, I was probably max 4 to 5 centimeters dilated, because I did dilate it a little bit more after that, I think. But the funny thing is, I never got to find out when I went back to the birth center. After all that, after driving home, and actually eating a sandwich too before she left, because she was like, please try to eat something. I hadn't eaten anything that day yet. Finally, I decided, okay, let's just drive back. I tried to lay down for a little bit after the bath. That didn't work. Like I said, it's just the idea of trying to rest when you're in that much pain. I guess it just didn't work for me. This is where it comes in. The birth is just, a natural birth is something you have to prepare for. You have to prepare for well. And I didn't do that. I was hoping, like in another documentary I watched where the lady was just like, it's like a cat. Like, a cat doesn't have to think about how they give birth. They just do it naturally. Like, your body will know what to do. And I was like, duh, my body will know. I don't have to worry. One birthing class, check. So life decided to humble me in this instance a lot. And also, for the record, I feel like if cats had pain medication during birth, they would probably take that shit, but I can only speak for myself. Just one cat. Singular. At this point, I was honestly too, and this is just a red flag right here, that I'm not comfortable like telling my midwife that we came back, but I didn't feel comfortable telling her. So at this point, we're literally sitting in the car, kind of trying to take a little bit of a nap in front of the birthing center. I would start to fall asleep every once in a while. I would start to doze off, and then inevitably that searing pain would wake me up. And in fact, the thing about contractions, at least in my experience, is like you're told, they build, right? So it wouldn't even be like at the climax of the pain that I would wake up. It would be like as you know, the pain is starting to build up and you're anticipating it, that's when I wake up, because how am I supposed to sleep like knowing what's coming? It just wasn't, this is just not realistic. So I already mentioned how Zara's dad tends to fall asleep while just in general, actually he just tends to fall asleep. And I was scared that if I was at home I would feel alone because he would start to fall asleep. But this was kind of the same thing, where we're in the car and I'm trying to fall asleep but I can't because of this pain, and he's just next to me just knocked out. And maybe I'm selfish, I don't know, I feel like motherhood has definitely made me become even more aware of my faults, but it just felt like, damn, like today should be about me, like, right? Like today, I've been through a lot during my pregnancy. I mean, I went through a lot that I don't even talk about. But today should be about me, and I'm alone. So finally, I just started crying. And that's also where it comes back to, I guess, a realization that I had. She's just making noises, apparently. This was honestly the turning point of my birth, because, and this was one of the darkest moments, I don't even want to say just of my birth, probably of my whole pregnancy. I had a lot of dark moments, but I feel like sometimes I was just in denial about them. Like, even how long I tried to stay with my partner during my pregnancy, just being in denial about the realities of my situation. Granted, I'm all for girl power, woman power, all that shit. That's what I tried to embody during my pregnancy, and I'm proud of myself for that. I tried to make the absolute best experience possible out of my pregnancy, and I did have some really beautiful and amazing moments during my pregnancy. But overall, my pregnancy was hard. It was isolating. I felt alone. I felt frustrated. I felt scared. And I feel like this point in my birth was just it kind of encapsulated all those feelings. It forced me to look them in the face, and I just realized, you know, in another life, in another world, in another, you know, in another situation, I could have done this natural birth. I really think I could have. I could have gone in there. I could have done the tub, even though it did not help with the pain. And I could have pushed this baby out naturally the way that I had wanted to. Although when we get to later parts of the story, maybe not for my first one, maybe not at all. But I do think, some part of me still does think, if I had had a different situation, if I had been able, even if I had just been able to prepare better myself, or if I had had a more supportive partner, or a partner that I felt more supported by, more understood by, or any combination thereof, maybe I could have gotten through what was the highest amount of physical pain I'd ever experienced. But the reality was, and this is what it means, you know, to meet those realities, I didn't have those things. I didn't have, you know, a partner that I felt supported or understood me. I didn't have the preparation that I needed. I didn't have a midwife that I connected with or felt safe or comfortable around. Essentially, everything was just falling apart, and in that moment, I had to face that reality. So I start crying, and I wake Nate up out of his deep, deep slumber, and I just said, okay, you need to go in there and you need to ask them about how it works to transfer to a hospital, because I can't do this. And Nate looked at me and he said, are you sure? You told me to try to talk you out of it if you say that. And I said, oh, listen, that was if I was in like the point of no return, like in the tub, baby's right there. Of course that pain's gonna be unbearable. That's what I was talking about. But this is not that. This is, I'm rational, I'm calm, and I've assessed the situation. I've gotten over my denial, and I can't do this. Like, this is not realistic for me right now. Nate goes in, he talks to the front desk receptionist, and she comes out. This lady is so sweet. Also, she was always really sweet, but in this moment, she was especially caring, and she was like, Mama, I didn't know you were in there. I'm so sorry. You know, please come in. And this is a part that I forgot to mention, right? So I had been embarrassed to tell our midwife that I was out in the car in labor, just chilling for my contractions. But she had actually walked out because she was going to lunch. So she saw that we were there, and it was awkward, but she just kind of was like, hi, I'm going to lunch. And I was like, okay. She left. So that was kind of like our whole interaction. She didn't walk up to the car. She didn't ask if we were okay or what was going on or how I was doing. She just, I'm going to lunch. Peace. You know, whatever. It is what it is. But she left. And like I said, I just felt even more uncomfortable, even more alone. And when the front desk lady came out and was like, I didn't know you were in the car. Like, if I had known, I would have come way sooner. Your windows are tinted. Like, I didn't realize. Because she was from the side. Like, the midwife passed from the front where you can see. Honestly, I was just sitting there like, how can this woman at the front desk care more about how I'm doing in my labor than my midwife does? Like, I know a midwife is not a doula. I know they are a healthcare professional. They're there to deliver your baby. But at the same time, like, it was just a really shitty feeling. Like I said, I went in there, the midwife came back, and we actually did have a little conversation about what had happened that morning, which I think was good. But, you know, overall, I still do feel like she kind of made the situation about herself. And again, you know I can definitely at times be, or at least I think I know at times I can be a selfish person. I shouldn't even feel embarrassed to admit that. Like, everyone can be selfish, but that's not to say that it's not something we should all work on and be aware of. I think at times I can be selfish, but it's like I said, this is not a situation where I look back and feel like I did anything wrong, because at the end of the day, like, I was the one who was in pain. Like, I was the one who was in active labor. I was the first-time mom. I feel like the midwife should have been more accommodating, and she wasn't. I still think it's good that we had the conversation, but at the end of the day, it still felt like she was just kind of making excuses for her behavior, when at the end of the day, all she had to do was just kind of put her own feelings aside for that moment and just be like, I'm on the way. That's all it had to be. And so she was kind of explaining that it was confusion, and she had told Nate that she claimed that she had told Nate that she was coming. He says that he swears that she didn't say that. He's not always the best communicator, so I don't know what actually happened. But either way, she had been confused about that interaction, that like she didn't know why we hadn't told her ahead of time that we were going to the center, so I think she felt embarrassed. And then, you know, I called her again after she, you know, said that she had already told Nate that she was coming, so that's why she didn't understand why I was calling her again. At any rate, I still felt pretty certain that I wanted to switch, but I wanted to go ahead and get checked while I was there, see how far dilated I was, even just for safety. Like, if I'm 9 centimeters dilated, I'm probably not going to go to the hospital, like, it's too late. But she was like, well, you know, I'll only check you if you decide to stay with us. And I remember looking at her like, after all of this, like, you can't even check me before I leave. Okay, all right. Her reasoning for it was she didn't want to make me uncomfortable if they have to check me again in the hospital, but it's like, you don't know how long that process is going to be. So to me, I think baby girl's waking up. So to me, the whole thought process still didn't make sense, but at this point, I was just kind of done. We tried to stay for a little bit just to see how I was feeling, and like I said, I just finally was able to kind of get in myself just the initiative to be like, you know what, you've made your decision, trust yourself this once, and go. Now at this point, I had to make the decision for what hospital to go to also. While I'm already in labor is getting closer together. Both the hospitals were about 30 minutes away. In hindsight, I do wish I had chosen the opposite hospital just because it's a lot closer to my house. I chose one that was closer to his house at the time. But it was also influenced again by this midwife that told me, you know, you may not want to go to this hospital. They have a really high C-section rate. At this point, I'm just terrified. The hospital I chose wasn't as like necessarily as high class or good of a hospital as the one that I didn't choose, which again, looking back on it, is like, I could end up getting a C-section at either hospital, so why go to the one that's not as, you know, top tier? But, you know, the snap decision was made. I was really, really scared of a C-section, and so we were on our way. I think she's going back to bed. We're on our way to the hospital. We get there. We pulled up to the emergency room, man, and I definitely got like a dramatic ass entry, like I was in a motherfucking Grey's Anatomy. I literally came in there and I was already like, at that point I'm pretty sure I was in active labor. I think they were definitely 5 minutes apart. And as I think he was going up to the counter to try to get me like registered or whatever, I just started getting a contraction. So I'm just sitting there like actively in this contraction, just like low-key just moaning under my breath. So they kind of like peep what's going on after a minute, and so they start to get a wheelchair or whatever for me. And my stubborn ass, why am I so stubborn? Like, why am I so hard-headed? That's the real question. I don't know. But they were like, can, you know, go ahead, get in the wheelchair. And I was like, can I walk? And they were like, bitch, what the fuck? And they were like, no, like, you can't walk. You have to get in the wheelchair. And I was like, but it hurts so much worse when I sit. I just had to tough out the contraction. And then I went ahead and took a seat on like the very edge, and she wheeled me up to the room. Man, first of all though, when I got to the room, at this point the contractions were so bad that I was just screaming. Like, I was not even moaning anymore. Like, I would just scream. Like, it really like was in a fucking movie. Like, I was screaming, I was yelling. I was going, give me the epidural, give me the epidural, give me the epidural. The funniest part to me is that I had been so adamant, like, the epidural just scares me like more than birth does. You know, like, that's a needle in your spine. Like, that's crazy. Like, childbirth is natural. The way my mom put it after, she was like, yeah, childbirth is natural and so is death. I was like, shit. Well, you couldn't put it that way before I gave birth, but it's okay. My mom just realized, like, certain things I just have to learn my lesson myself, and I feel like that's absolutely factual. Like, it's just I'm stubborn as fuck. I was just in so much pain, and because it had been so late and I had come so late and whatever, it took them a long time to give me the epidural. I had been supposed to get a birth photographer. Well, I had found a birth photographer, and I had paid her the first half and everything, but I was in so much pain and I was so mean that I was just like, I can't have anybody else. And just tell her to cancel, tell her we'll plan another shoot, tell her anything. It's not happening. So again, at this point, I was basically just like this gremlin, like in the corner of the bed. They had already put an IV in me, so like they didn't even want me standing, they wanted me laying. And I was just in the corner, just like, what I realized when I got past a certain point was that if I pushed, the pain was better. Like, when the contraction came, if I pushed through it, I felt better. So no nurse was in there, nobody was watching me do this. I didn't know how close this baby was to coming out, but at this point, like I said, my hard-headed ass was just like, if she's about to come out right now, I'll catch her myself. I have to push. Like, it just becomes a natural instinct. And to be honest, once I started pushing, the pain became a little more manageable, but I knew that that was not even the peak of pain yet. The peak of pain is when the baby is actually coming out. So my child's father started to notice that I was actually pushing. And this poor man was like, I have to get the nurses. And I was like, don't get them. Like, I have to push. And like, he was probably so stressed. We were both so stressed. He didn't get the nurses, which I'm thankful for. At that point, like I said, I still hadn't even gotten the epidural yet. So I was not nearly as far along as I thought. When they finally did come in, they were able to give me the epidural. And I was grateful for that, because it did just grant a certain amount of relief at the time where I was getting really close to pushing, but I was able to relax. When I came in and they checked me, I was 5 centimeters dilated. By the time they got me the epidural, maybe like an hour or two later, I was 9 centimeters dilated. So that's the craziest thing to me. Like, man, like, I really got an epidural at 9 centimeters. Like, I couldn't have just toughed it out. But to be honest, like I said, the whole experience had already been so stressful. And in my opinion, like, I thought it was traumatic as hell. Didn't want to go through the worst pain without medication. Like, I just really didn't. So as much as the epidural was very short-lived, I actually feel grateful for how everything transpired also, just because I only did have the epidural for a very short amount of time. You know, less of the medication went to my baby, was transferred to my baby. They gave me fentanyl though. I forgot about that part too. Like, what the hell? They literally gave me a shot of motherfucking fentanyl, if I remember correctly, to like help with the pain faster. It makes you itchy and stuff. Like, I did not ask for that. I was actually really upset about that. Like, they did a survey afterward, and like, I brought that up because, like, what the heck? Like, I did not ask for that. They gave me the shot of fentanyl as I was getting the epidural, so like, I would understand if they'd given it to me like way earlier, but like, what was the purpose? Like, I literally remember like, I didn't ask for, I don't really want, and they're just like bloop, and you're like, okay, cool, like, you don't need my medical consent, like, that's fine. So finally I get this epidural. I can finally like think like a human being again. And he asked me again, you know, the birth photographer actually came here, even though he said not to. Can she come? And I just want to give a shout out to her. Thank you so much. Because I could not have chosen a better birth photographer. Any other birth photographer would have been like, peace out, and that would have been completely justified. So the fact that she still came, even just to potentially be support if I didn't want the photos, that meant so much to me. She did end up coming, she did end up photographing the birth, and I was really, really glad that she did. The photos turned out amazing, even though, like I said, the experience was a lot harder and a lot more traumatic than I had hoped for and anticipated. I was hoping the end of my birth would be less traumatic, but to be honest, it was still really traumatic. Like, it was, because at the very end of my birth, they ended up cutting me. I don't know why they had to cut me, to be honest, because my baby was 6 pounds. I did not have a big baby. I'm a big person. I'm like 5'9", big boned, you know. And so the fact that they had to cut me, I didn't feel like it was necessary. I literally was like, don't cut me! Like, I like screamed while it was happening, before it happened. But she actually stopped everything she was doing and she looked me in the face and was like, I'm an OBGYN. I would not be doing this if I didn't feel like it was medically necessary, and I do feel like it's medically necessary. And at that point, you're just like, shit, she's got me there. At the very end of the birth also, Zara's cord started to get wrapped around her neck because of a mistake the doctor made, which kind of pissed me off. But I guess the doctor was holding the cord to the side and her finger slipped. It wrapped around her neck, and at that point I had wanted to do prolonged, like I had wanted to wait to cut the cord. And because of that, we had to cut it immediately when she came out. She had also been distressed in the womb, so she had pooped. So I did the same thing. There were like some very weird similarities and occurrences in our birth. And then probably the strangest thing out of everything in my birth was about a year and a half earlier, I had had a weird experience in a dream where I had heard this very clear voice say, "Death has blue eyes." And I didn't know what it meant, and it was really scary and strange. I remember just waking up terrified. And a year and a half later, right, I'm in labor, giving birth to my daughter, and they hand her to me. And like I said, I was just so overwhelmed from everything, from being cut, from just the whole experience. I just wasn't able to process it. I think I've always struggled with processing experiences in which there's so much sensory things going on. And so when they handed her to me, I just see this baby with these bright blue eyes. And so the first thing I said while I'm holding my daughter was, I think I'm going to die. I definitely think she is starting to wake up. She still looks sleepy, but I'm gonna try to wrap this up because I know when she wakes up I need to breastfeed. So I said that. I said, I think I'm going to die. And the nurse asked me why. And I said, because she has blue eyes. And I think the nurse and the doctor just looked at each other like, this crazy bitch. But yeah, everyone in that room thought I was crazy, like, for sure. But I do think that part of my birth story is honestly really cool. Like, it's as weird and uncomfortable as it was. I just think that was probably my favorite part of my birth story, just because it was so interesting. And the really cool thing about it after the fact is I was talking to my mom about it, and she kind of brought up the fact that in tarot cards, death doesn't always mean death, you know? Sometimes it means an event occurring that's going to change everything. It means the end of something old and the beginning of something new. And when she put it like that, like, it made sense all of a sudden. I was like, you know, I did die that day, because the old me is like, she doesn't exist anymore. And I think that was one of the hardest parts of postpartum, was just accepting that this old me was never gonna come back. I think there was some part of me, I went through so much traumatic shit during my pregnancy that I just thought, you know, I just have to get through the 9 months. I'm gonna get through the 9 months, I'm gonna feel like me again. And to have this new life, in your life and not feel like yourself and just realize like that version of me is never coming back, it's terrifying and it's hard. And it's also beautiful. As corny as it may seem to say that everything in life that's worth it is hard, I think there is a big part of me that believes that. And this is definitely the hardest thing that I've ever experienced, especially at such a young age. But it's also, honestly, I would say the best thing that's ever happened to me. Not only because it made me a mom, not only because I have an amazing, beautiful, healthy daughter, but because it has forced me to face myself in a way that I have never wanted to do ever at all. I am such a runner. I am such a person that doesn't want to face reality, doesn't want to face myself, doesn't want to face my problems, doesn't want to face my relationships. I grew up moving all across the country. I grew up with a fairly absent, emotionally and just like in my life, fairly absent father, and a mother who just felt overlooked. And this is not to say that this is the total sum of their identities, because it's not. They had so many good times, and there's so many amazing qualities about them, but those were the overwhelming qualities about them that I picked up on as a child, just feeling like my dad's not really there, and he kind of controls our lives and like everything around us, and my mom is there and she doesn't seem happy. She doesn't seem like she has everything that she needs. And you know, because we were always moving and because we were homeschooled for a large portion of our education, I guess I just wasn't faced to work through relationships the way that other children probably were. I wasn't forced to do the necessary work of relationships, you know? It was kind of like we were one place and then we would pick up and move and then we would be another place. And I just felt like my relationships were so temporary, and it was easier to run away, and I was scared to face those things. And having a child has literally forced me to face every single part of myself that I was scared of, and to grow from it and to learn and to be better. So that's not to sugarcoat it. That's not to say that any of this is easy or that I would wish what I've been through on someone else, because I wouldn't, because it's been incredibly hard. But I feel kind of blessed that that this is what my life has been, that I was chosen for a path that's not easy, but in which I have so many opportunities to grow and to be better and to do better. And every time I look at my daughter and I'm just completely overwhelmed and just like done, I just have to be reminded, like, not only that she needs me, but also like this is an opportunity. Like, this is one of those grow or go situations where I want to run away, but I'm being forced to stay and to grow, and it's hard. But I think, I don't know, like, it's already made me a better person in like every aspect of my life, to be honest. Because motherhood will do that to you. Motherhood makes you selfless. Motherhood is sanctifying. And, you know, I am somebody who 110% advocates for women, and I want to be able to show up for myself and my daughter, and that's something I'm still working on, just finding that balance as a new mom. But what I will say is that I've been incredibly blessed. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my natural birth fail story. Was it a fail in terms of being a natural birth? Yes. But was it a fail, like, in general? I don't think so. I think it was hard, it was traumatic, it was stressful. But it's one of like the craziest and coolest stories of my life, man. I don't know. I just know I'm gonna look back at that story for the rest of my life, and it's gonna be one of the big ones. And someday I'm gonna tell it to Zara. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much for watching. And to all the moms out there, whether you had a C-section birth, a natural birth, a birth where you got cut like I did, a birth where everything went as planned and it was natural, you know, no matter what kind of birth you had, just know that you did amazing. Like, you're amazing, your body is amazing, and there's no birth that's a bad birth. There's no birth that's a failure. That, I think, is the most important thing to know.
Come here, mamacita. That's my mamacita. That's my mamacita. Oi, oi, oi.